I wanted to bookend my career. So that's why there's only 10 songs on this record. And starting with Punks and ending with Hourglass is kind of, that's my career in a nutshell. Everything that happens in the middle is life as I know it.
Awesome. I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new album on this.
Cool.
Sweet. Well, first off, I always ask, born and raised from Illinois originally. Is that what I read?
Yeah, I was born in Elgin, Illinois. My father and mother and my entire family were all born there.
No way. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So did you have like your parents have extended family? Did you have like cousins and aunts and uncles and everything around you as well?
Yeah, I've got 7 cousins, 3 aunts. I had a couple uncles, but they're gone. Yeah, I got actually a lot of family. Every time I play either in Chicago or Rockford or something, there's about 20 or 30 that show up. So it's
Wow.
quite a clan. Yeah, it's great.
That's amazing. Like for holidays and stuff, is everybody together?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, my family moved from Ohio to San Diego. I was born in San Diego. My mom was 8 months pregnant when they moved. But so we didn't have any family like that around. So I'm always like envious of people that got to like kind of grow up with the big family around and have all the aunts and uncles and everything at
Yeah, it's
different
pretty
homes.
nice. Pretty nice.
Cool. What about music? Do you come from a musical household at all, or was that something you picked up on your own?
No, my father was a jazz musician. My mom was a standard singer.
Wow.
My brother Dennis played drums. My brother Brian played saxophone. My sister played flute.
Wow,
Yeah,
very musical
music.
household.
Yeah, music was always on. If I came home from school, my mom was a housewife, so music was always in the house. There was always something going on. There was we went to a Baptist church, so there's a lot of music there, and
Sure.
yeah, it was always around me. I was very very fortunate.
Wow. You said dad was as a jazz musician. What instrument did he play?
He played all the woodwind and all the brass. So
Cool.
my dad was born in 1922 in Chicago, and he wanted to go to a Jesuit Catholic school. So he kind of started playing in bands actually when he was quite young, 13 and 14 years old, to kind of cover those costs and things. So he was a very accomplished player. He sat in several times with Dizzy Gillespie and those back in the 40s and 50s when he
Yeah.
came back from the war. So yeah, he was one of those cats that got a phone call if they needed a clarinet player, if they needed a sax player, if they needed a trumpet player, trombone player, whatever.
Wow. And it sounds like one of your siblings plays what, you say saxophone or did
My
play
brother
saxophone?
played saxophone. Yeah, he only played it in high school. He didn't continue to play it.
Oh, okay.
And that the funny thing is, like, none of us really knew. None of the children knew that my father was that accomplished of a player until kind of my brother came home from school with an alto saxophone, and my dad happened to be home from a business trip. He's like, "Oh, let me see that thing," and he picked it up and just started going off on it. We were like, "What is that?" Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So he obviously didn't have one at the house that he was playing regularly or anything. He just kind of stopped doing it.
Well, when he met my mother, my mom's about 18 years in age younger than him. So when he met her, he decided to kind of give up music. He was a cop on the south side of Chicago,
Oh, wow.
and he wanted to, be married and have kids, and so he gave up music and just focused on sales.
Wow. For you though, I mean, that's not knowing that your dad was this incredible jazz player. Did you go to saxophone or like an instrument like that when you first started? Were guitar the first instrument you learned? Like where did you start off?
No, I started with French horn,
Oh, wow.
and then
Okay.
yeah, and then I moved on to then I played alto saxophone, then clarinet, and then flute because I wanted to keep moving down to instruments that were smaller and easy to carry.
There you go.
And then I picked up drums. I picked up drums when I was 10 years old, and that was the biggest mistake of my life because I fell madly in love with it, and that's all I wanted to be was a drummer.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny that you said the piece about going down instruments because you don't want to carry. Because when we were offered an instrument when I was in fifth grade to play, in fourth, you went in to see the band, kind of the orchestra play. And this kid put his mouth all over the whole clarinet and blew into it. And I was like, and it just made this obnoxious sound. I'm like, that's what I want to play. And not
Yeah.
only that, you could fit it in your backpack. And my neighbor played trombone, and he had to carry this giant trombone home when we walk home from school. Like,
Oh
oh man,
man.
I'm glad I chose glad I chose a clarinet.
Yeah, fourth grade. I mean, the size of me carrying a French horn case around was hilarious.
Yeah, I can't
So
imagine.
trying to get on a school bus with that fucking thing, it was ridiculous. But yeah,
Oh man. So 10, you said you started playing drums. Were you still living in Illinois at that time, or had you moved?
no, I was living in Kansas. My dad took a job with a salt company, like right around 1974 or 70, 73, 74.
Mhm.
And so he moved us to St. Joe, Missouri, and then from St. Joe, Missouri to Kansas City, Kansas, and then Hutchinson, Kansas. So in Hutchinson is where I kind of started playing drums, and that was where I got really focused on what I wanted to do musically. And then he took a job in San Antonio right after seventh grade, so we moved to San Antonio, Texas when I started eighth grade, and that's where I kind of continued with the drumming and rock and roll.
Okay. Were you playing in bands when you were living in Kansas prior to moving, or did you kind of start that
No,
when you
just a,
got?
just a school band. Yeah.
Oh, school band.
Um,
Okay, cool.
yeah. None of the other kids, like I didn't have any friends that played rock guitar or anything like that. So it was really just about playing in the band at school and trying to get that first chair or whatever it was.
Sure.
That was for me. It was the competition. And my brother Brian was first chair saxophone in the sixth grade band. So I wanted to be
Oh,
first chair. I wanted to be first chair sax player in fourth grade band. So
okay.
I don't think that even exists anymore. I don't think they go back to band like that in school anymore. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know I have a 7-year-old son in elementary school, but I don't think that they have like a band that's in,
No,
fourth or fifth grade. It's
no.
yeah, unfortunate.
School
So
of Rock. That's about it.
right, exactly. So when you moved to Texas, were you and you're still playing drums, obviously, was that when you kind of started a band, or is that when you first started playing with other people?
That's kind of when I just started jamming with friends at my house. I didn't really start a band until I moved to Seattle. That was in 84, 85. I can't remember.
Okay.
And I started playing with some kids at my high school. We had a band called Wool.
And that was in Seattle. You moved to Seattle for high school?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
My middle
wow.
of my sophomore year. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay. You moved around quite a bit then. I mean, to leave
yeah,
in middle school and then leave again in the middle of high school. Wow.
yeah. Well, I
That must
lived
have
in
been
nine cities by the time I was. I think by the time I was 10 years old, I'd already lived in nine cities.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow. So were you still playing drums when you moved to Seattle to play in the band? When you joined that
yeah,
band, were you the drummer?
yeah. And I didn't stop until Candlebox. So I was a drummer all the way
Really?
up until I started singing in Candlebox.
Wow. Were you songwriting prior to that, or was Candlebox kind of your first effort at this?
Candlebox was well, I mean, I had written some stuff with my band, but it's mostly punk rock. That's all I was playing. Like, my influences are the Clash and Bad Brains and Dead Kennedys and Butthole
Sure.
Surfers and Black Flag. So that's what I grew up on. So being in a punk band was like really, how hard is it to write a punk song? But yeah, Candlebox was my first like real experiences like writing lyrics and being a songwriter.
Okay. And so you obviously could play guitar at that point, but it was just to
No,
songwrite.
I didn't
Or you
start. I didn't
oh,
start playing guitar until I was 27 or 28.
no way. Okay. Wow. So you were just writing what lyrics that you would kind of pitch to the other guys in the band? Like
Yeah, I
how
could
did you
pick up a
start
guitar
writing?
and
Okay.
I could pick up a guitar and I could play chords.
Uh-huh.
But like I didn't know, really how to write a song. I've always kind of played by ear, even though I could read music. When it came time to like for me to work on melodies and stuff, I would pick up a guitar and I would work around the melodies within what Pete was writing, what Barty was writing, to kind of give myself, direction for melodic movement and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think the first song I actually wrote was Blossom, which I wrote, by myself entirely. And it's a very simple chord progression, but it's a drop D tuning and it makes it really easy to move around in that. So that's kind of why all the stuff that I write is in kind of more the major movements with minor falls and not the intricacies of like a change or
Hmm.
or cover me or something like that.
Wow. And so what made you decide that you wanted to, front the band? I mean, coming from being a drummer, uh, were you just writing songs? You've met some people that were playing or met a drummer and you're like, oh, maybe I'll try to write and sing?
Well, I still don't want to be the lead singer of this band. I never wanted it. I'm the reluctant lead singer of a rock and roll band. I always wanted to be a drummer. I got stuck with this gig. Scott Mercado, our drummer, was friends with this guy named Rick Vaughn, who was writing songs, and Rick had worked at Reciprocal Recordings in Seattle, so he'd worked with Jack Endino and stuff. So he'd been around the block for a while, and they had some songs, and Scott had heard me sing it at my 16th birthday party
Oh, wow.
that he came to with a friend. And so he reached out to me. I was working at a shoe store at the time, John Fluvog, and he said, "Hey, I'm working on this stuff with this guy named Rick Vaughn. Would you be interested in singing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not a singer. I play drums." And he's like, "Well, I've heard you sing, and would you come and do it?" So that was this band called Uncle Duke, and that was the beginning of the rest of my life as a rock and roll singer.
Wow. Okay. So Uncle Duke was the first band, and then eventually did that become Candlebox? Or is that
Candlebox, yeah,
years
that became
later?
Candlebox. Yeah,
Okay.
that about a year and a half later, Rick left and we became Candlebox. So that was 1990 when Uncle Duke was started, and then Pete joined in 91, and we became Candlebox in October of 91.
Wow. And did you just from there, was it just playing around Seattle? Like, how did you guys get your start?
Well, we couldn't play any of the clubs because our bass player wasn't 21. So in Seattle, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, you had to be 21 years old to play in a bar. So we played a lot of house parties, a lot of friends, garages. There were some all ages venues we played on the east side, and some stuff in West Seattle. But yeah, our first rock and roll gig at a bar wasn't until I think like June of 92.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it was like our first gig at a bar. That's when Barty turned 21. So yeah, we played a lot of house parties.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and to be in Seattle in a rock band in the early 90s, I mean, that's when everything was going off in Seattle.
Yeah,
That must have
it
been
was
a
pretty crazy.
exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. It's every single day there was another band to see, or there was another club to go to, or the singles movie kind of made everybody move there, and it was pretty incredible. I will tell you though, from 1984 till 1990, that's what I kind of really remember about that scene, was that rapid kind of growth that was happening, and all the cool rock bands that were coming out. Just that kind of incubator that was happening from 84 to 90 was just incredible. It produced so many great bands, and the city was really, really open to it, and as were the fans. Very, very supportive. The University of Washington would constantly allow the kids to have Husker Du come play or something like that, and you'd have like maybe Mother Love Bone open, or Soundgarden or
Wow.
something like that. So yeah, it was all pretty cool back then.
Wow. So once you guys, you can play in clubs, right? You're 21 years old, everyone in the band's 21. And then you put out what a EP, was that the first thing you guys released? And then was that what kind of eventually landed you, record deals and the start of the success of the band?
Well, no, we had to, in order to play in the city, you had to have a demo tape. So we
Oh,
actually
okay.
did a cassette tape, and it had 10 songs on it. And we recorded that Easter Sunday of 92 at Bob Lang's studio in Seattle, with Kelly Gray, our producer. And that was basically just to get gigs. And then two of the songs from that demo tape, Far Behind and You, ended up making the album, because when we tried to re-record them, when we made the debut, we didn't capture the same energy, because at that point we'd been playing them so much. So we had kind of altered them, and as the more you start playing a song, the more it grows and changes. So we felt that the demo from Bob Lang's of Easter Sunday was better than the new recording. So that was our cassette tape that got us the gigs in Seattle. Our first gig at Rock Candy with Sweetwater, the OK Hotel, and the Crocodile, and the list goes on and on.
Wow. So the version that's on the album is that original recording.
Yeah, that's from Easter Sunday of 92.
That's insane. That's wow. I have heard that of other artists kind of saying, like, especially over like the pandemic, recording or having to record on like a USB mic in their closet or something, and then getting the opportunity to finally go to the studio and not being able to kind of recreate that same emotion and everything with the songs, especially a song that you guys had been playing for such a long time. I could see how that would be, difficult to kind of get the same magic maybe on the record.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely what happened.
Yeah, wow. And then obviously that song becomes this gigantic hit. I mean, still to this day, massive hit. Um, and I mean, when that happened, like, what was that moment like, or like, what was it like, kind of seeing these crowds build, or was that the first one that really jumped off and got you guys on like on the map as far as your eyes on like labels and all these things that were happening in the '90s?
I don't really know how the attention um, got directed towards us. I think it was there. I mean, obviously, there was so much attention in the city
Hmm.
that if you were a remotely good band, somebody was paying attention to you. I think it was we had been asked at the last minute to do this showcase for BMI, which was at the off ramp. And they put us on, I think doors were at 6, the doors were at 7, they put us on at 7:30, and there were like 10 bands. So they put us on, they gave us 10 minutes, they gave us 15 minutes.
Wow.
Um, and we just destroyed it. I mean, I remember Green Apple Quick Step was on that bill, Sweetwater was on that bill, Fire Ants was on that bill, Blood Circus was on the bill. I mean, there were a lot of bands, but we were the first band, and we fucking slayed that show. And so we got invited to Los Angeles by EMI to play for Fred Davis, who was running EMI, Clyde Davis's son, who was running EMI SBK at the time. And we were invited to play the Club Lingerie in Los Angeles, and Guy Osiri from Maverick Records happened to come in as we were playing, and so that's kind of how that all started for us.
Wow. Was that a big moment as far as like, having your dad be a musician, your mom's is a singer, and other members of your family are all musical, like to be able to call home or to let everyone know, like, hey, my band, we got signed. I mean, that must have been such a cool experience.
It was, I mean, mind blowing, and obviously life changing, and I mean, the experience of making a record that you know I like I've said it, I'd love to meet the person that was the very first person to buy our CD outside of Seattle,
Yeah.
because it's like, how does that all happen, and how does some radio station start playing your song, change, and next thing you know, you come home after being on tour for 5 months, and you've sold 250,000 units, and you're selling out 3 nights at the Paramount in Seattle. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. So you know I think for me it was just so surreal. It still is, man. I mean, the fact that I just toured for 4 months with Three Doors Down all summer long and played to 5 to 10,000 people a night after 30 years is crazy to me. I mean, it's just, how do you even begin to understand what's happening to you as a human being or as a musician? You know that there are bands that are better than you. You know that there are musicians that are better than you. You know that there are bands that hate you for what's happening with your success from your own hometown. I mean, when I met Ben from Grunt Truck was my favorite bands of all time. Skin Yard even better. And the singer Ben, I met him after we'd sold out 3 nights at the Paramount that Christmas of '93, and we did a huge charity event, and it was a big deal. And the second night, I went down to this place called the Off Ramp, or I'm sorry, the Frontier Room, to have a cocktail, and with my buddy Dave Hillis. And Dave knew Ben from back in the day, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to meet Ben?" I said, "I'd love to." And I went over, and he's like, "Hey, Ben, this is Kevin from Candlebox. He's just a big fan and would love to meet you." And he's like, "How the hell did you sell out 3 nights at Paramount?" I said, "Dude, I have no idea." And he goes, "Me neither." And he wouldn't even shake my hand. So, like, that was the kind of shit we dealt with as a band. And till this day, we still are kind of the second thought of the Seattle rock bands.
Wow. Yeah, that must have been yeah, kind of like don't meet your heroes type thing. I mean, that's good. That'd be devastating, I would imagine. I
Yeah, it
mean,
was pretty fucked up. And I mean, it was hard for me at the time because yeah, don't meet your heroes, but Candlebox was, fuck, we were everywhere. At that point, I think our record was selling like, uh I think Christmas of '93, we were selling like 80,000 units a week. And by the time we got to Woodstock, we were selling $175,000. We had, or 175,000 units, and we had, the number 7 record in the country, and nobody cared.
Like, I mean, that record's like what, 4 times platinum or something. It's
Yeah.
crazy how many copies it sold. But then obviously you followed success with Lucy. I will say that I just want to add this because one of the greatest moments I've ever seen on a television show is when in Eastbound and Down, when they sing Far Behind. I was dying laughing. I'm like, this song is so good, and the fact that Kenny Powers in the show
Yeah.
is singing at this funeral, I was dying, and I just had to bring that up to you, just because I
We
saw.
we
Yeah.
we played Daniel Island in South Carolina, where he's from, and we tried to get him to come to the show to come out on stage, but he was filming something somewhere else. And our tour manager, actually our management tour manager, Chris Phillips, knows him real well, and they spoke on the phone. He's like, "Dude, I would have loved to have done that, but so I think he was in Los Angeles or something." But yeah, I mean, it's my friend called me from Florida. He's like, "Have you watched Eastbound and Down tonight yet?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "Dude, you're gonna laugh your ass off." And I was like, "What's up?" And he goes, "I'm not gonna tell you." And of course, when that scene happened, there's part of you that goes, "This is amazing." There's other part that's like, "Are they taking the shit out of us right now? Is that what's happening? Like, is they taking the piss out of like what Candlebox means?" But either way, it's like, you know, um, they're playing your song,
Right.
and it's all about that kind of history of the band and the longevity, and it is it's a fucking sad song. It's a
Mhm.
song about death and loss and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. It's Danny McBride is just so goofy, obviously, in that character, that it just made
yeah,
the whole spectacle of it. But it was like, yeah, I can't imagine, not even you didn't even know, and then just watching it and being like, holy, like, holy shit,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
happening.
yeah,
Well, I want to talk about the new album. I mean, it sounds like this. Is this the last album?
yeah.
I
This
mean,
is it. This is it for me.
and then you're just gonna, is it just it for Candlebox, or it in general, or?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's it for Candlebox. But
Okay.
I'm still doing, like, I've got my charity that I'll be doing at the end of the year, which will happen. That's going to be an annual charity event, which I'll play acoustically for.
Right.
And if anybody ever asks me to do anything, charitable, it won't be with the band. It will be just Kevin Martin of Candlebox.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's been a long, somewhat illustrious career, and and I'm done. I really enjoyed being home with my family during COVID, and realized that music didn't mean the same to me as it did when I was younger.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you put an album out right after COVID, right? Or 2021. Was that an album you guys had worked on prior to the
Well,
pandemic and had to hold on to it, or?
yeah, yeah, it
uh
was done in August and September of 19, and it was supposed to come out in the spring of 20. So
oh
we had to
man.
wait until that September of 21 before we were able to release it.
Okay. And then so going into the long goodbye, it was prior to even starting the album, you knew, like, okay, this is gonna be the end.
Yeah, I talked to the guys about it on the tour, when we were out on the road in 21 and 22. I was like, "Listen, I want to make one last record with you guys, and I want it to be whatever we want it to be. I don't care if it's pop music. I don't care if it's rap. I just, whatever we're feeling as a band, you know. I mean, that's the thing about having a career for 30 years, is that um, I think the reason that we do is because we've never tried to rewrite Far Behind. We never
Hmm.
tried to rewrite Cover Me. We never tried to rewrite Change. We always pushed ourselves. Like, Lucy is such a departure from the debut, as is
Oh
Happy
yeah.
Pills, as is Into the Sun, and Love Stories and Other Musings. And, all of it's kind of, we always kept pushing and changing directions, and always started to kind of lean a little bit more towards pop in the early 2000s and stuff. But I like I said earlier, my songwriting style is of the ilk where I love those kind of ear candy chords, and I love popular music. I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift. I love
I
Bleachers. I
love Taylor
love
Swift.
War on Drugs. I mean, I love The National. I love Lana Del Rey. I love you know Grace Potter. I mean, I love Nothing But Thieves. I really admire that kind of popular songwriting. And so I think that's why Candlebox has been able to sustain themselves for 30 years, is because we continue to push that envelope.
Yeah, and you haven't yeah, exactly. You haven't written the same album. You weren't just trying to rewrite Far Behind, like you just said. I mean,
Yeah.
that is that is amazing to see. I mean, the longevity of the band, the amount of albums you guys have put out, and I love this new album. I did see that you worked with Don Miggs on the album.
Yeah. Don's one of my best friends, and we actually have a side project called Future Trash, which we do, and he's been the producer on that. So I asked him actually to produce the album because I love where Don comes from creatively and artistically, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to work with a band that had sold millions of records, not only for his own, feather in his cap, but for a little bit of acknowledgement and respect in this world, because he's trying to, break into the world of being, a major producer, and
Mhm.
sometimes, you got to give one another a shot at that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had him on this podcast before for a whole damn mess when
Yeah,
he had that band start. That's cool. So you did you record that in Nashville then, the album?
yeah, at his house, yeah.
Oh wow. Well, was it difficult? I mean, knowing that this is the final record, was it hard to kind of pick and choose what songs you guys were gonna do, or even probably write to know, okay, this is gonna be or was it pretty collective decisions on all the songs? Like, can you tell me about the album, like as far as that goes?
Yeah, well, we started writing when we were on tour last spring. So Island and Brian and I and Adam just kind of started mucking around with some stuff, some ideas that we had. Elegante was actually a song that we wrote at a sound check in Savannah, Georgia.
No way.
And yeah, which that's what we do a lot of times, is like we record our sound checks, and we just we have a lot of fun as a band. We don't mince words. You know, um, we don't worry about, ego or parts like that. It's just like, that's not going to work. Let's move on, and sound check that song Elegante happened really quick. So I knew that as a 5 piece that we were moving in a very good direction. So I was like, listen, we should book some time, and we have two months off, September and October. We should book some time, East Coast and West Coast, because Island and BJ, both of them at the time were living in Baltimore, and Brian lives in Philly, and Adam and I live in Los Angeles. So
Mhm.
I said, let's do an East Coast writing session, and we'll do a West Coast writing session. So we did the studio in Baltimore, which we wrote 12 songs in 3 days, 3 or 4 days. We
Wow.
recorded those. And then a month later, we were in LA at Don's other studio here, where he has La La Mansion, Los Angeles. We wrote 10 songs in 4 days. And so we had 22 pieces to choose from. When the vinyl comes out, there'll be 3 extra songs on the album.
Oh,
Um,
rad.
but but it really was about whittling it down, and I wanted to bookend my career. So that's why there's only 10 songs on this record. And starting with Punks and ending with Hourglass is kind of, that's my career in a nutshell. Everything that happens in the middle is life as I know it, and as I've known it. So that's why it's called A Long Goodbye. I've been considering this for a long time, of wrapping things up. And as much fun as I've had as a touring musician, and as a record maker, and recording artist, um, it, it pales in comparison to being a father to my son Jasper and a husband to my wife Natalie. It's a very strange emotion, and standing on stage and singing Far Behind, for the last time in Tulsa the other night. That's the last time I'll ever sing that song in Tulsa, with my band. It was a bittersweet ending to a somewhat confusing career for me, and so I think making this album was my way of really kind of dealing with those emotions that I knew I was going to experience, standing on stage for the very last time in Fort Lauderdale, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Chicago, Illinois, or whatever. Every single one of these shows we had this summer, I had that moment where, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really going to miss this, sort of thing. And but then, it's you come home and you realize that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I would
I don't
imagine.
know how
Yeah,
else to explain it, you know?
yeah, it's like and it's like almost at the end of every show, it had to be an emotional moment. Obviously, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the
Yeah.
last time I'm going to be playing, whatever, fill in the blank for City with this band, and then come the last day of the tour, you're like, oh, well, that's, wow. But then like you said, you come home to your family, and you're like, well, this is what it's all about for me. And I
Yeah. I
love
mean,
that no,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I didn't want to
I was
cut you
gonna
off.
say, I still have South America, coming up. And then we've just booked 4 shows in Australia in January. So I still have a little bit of touring to do, but
Out of the US.
for the States, it's done.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think that's cool that you bookended this album, especially finding out, your story earlier and just how you were in a punk band, right? I mean, then Punks is the first song on the record, and then going through to Hourglass and how it does wrap up. Was it when you picked the 10 tracks and then adding the 3 for the vinyl, were those like selecting the bonus ones? Was that like, oh, these were like 3 that I really wanted on it, but it didn't really make sense as far as the record flew, how the flow went, or
Yeah, yeah. The sequencing, yeah, of
yeah,
course. That's
sequencing.
really what it was. Yeah, the sequencing, the 3 songs were not going to work with the sequencing that I wanted. So and of course, with vinyl, it doesn't really matter because, some people play the second side, some people go with
You
the
got to
fourth
flip it
side, whatever.
over, right? Yeah.
So, but when it comes to a CD or streaming, that flow is everything. And it was really important that the story is told the way it's told.
Mhm. Wow. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Kevin, for doing this, man. I'm a huge fan of yours and in the band, and it's so cool to hear how this all happened, and congratulations on 30 years as a band. Not many people can say that. Not many bands, obviously, are
Yeah.
around with the longevity that you guys have had. And it's great to hear that you're going to be still doing your own stuff as far as acoustic and uh, and same with those other projects, like the project you have with Don, and are you keeping those going, or is it basically just kind of your solo thing now?
No, I don't think I'm going to make any more records. I don't
Oh
really
wow,
have any desire to go into the studio and record anymore. It's really just about, if somebody wants me to play a charity show, I'll do that, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
wow, okay. Well, that's that. I mean, wow, that's an incredible career that you've had, Kevin. Thank you again so
Thank
much. I have one more quick question for you before I let you go. I want to know, throughout the 30 plus years of doing this, if somebody asked you for some advice, do you have any advice for an aspiring musician or an artist that was looking to cut, into this industry?
Well, I mean, you have to be completely honest with yourself, and you have to be completely honest with the music that you're producing. If you find that you're, pulling too much from, the things that you listen to, if you're copying, Nickelback or something like that, or the Foo Fighters, that's not really being true to the music. I mean, you have to create what you have to create, and you have to be 100% committed to it. It's you know, there are decisions we made as a band that were probably not good decisions, but we were fucking committed to them, and it's what led me to where I'm at now. Listen, I would not want to be starting a new band right now at all. I mean, it's next to impossible to get anybody to pay attention. There's no label that's going to give you any money unless you've got, TikTok bullshit going on and your socials on Instagram. They don't do any work. Labels don't do any work. So again, it's left to the artist to produce what they need for their career, and it's a difficult thing to do. So the commitment is of the utmost importance, and getting out and playing every single place all the time. Getting out of your own city, getting out of your comfort zone, driving to. If you're from Washington State, driving over to Idaho to play shows, driving over to Montana to play shows, going up to Canada to play shows, get out there and play for people, and be committed to that show, lose yourself in the music in the moment. Exactly what Eminem says. If you're not doing that, everybody can smell bullshit from a mile away.
Bringing it backward.